Airbus built the A380 to rival the Boeing 747. This double-decker giant was designed to dominate the skies, connect the world's busiest airports, and redefine long-haul travel. But here's the mystery. Not a single major US airline bought one. Not American, not Delta, not United. Zero orders from the three biggest carriers in the world. Why would airlines with the deepest pockets and the longest route networks completely ignore the largest passenger jet ever built? The answer reveals everything about how airlines actually make money. To get how crazy this is, you need to understand just how massive American Airlines really are. American Airlines operates over 900 aircraft. Delta's fleet exceeds 1,000 planes. United flies more than 800. Combined, these three carriers move over 400 million passengers every year, across 6 continents. They have the financial muscle, the international routes, and the operational infrastructure to fly anything they want. The A380 was designed for exactly this kind of operation. With 525 seats in standard configuration and up to 853 in maximum capacity, it could move more people per flight than any other commercial aircraft. Airlines like Emirates, Singapore Airlines, and British Airways ordered them by the dozens. Emirates alone operates 116 of these giants. So the question becomes sharper. If the A380 works for global carriers moving massive numbers of passengers across continents, why wouldn't it work for the biggest airlines in America? The answer starts with something called the Kansas City test. This isn't an official term you'll find in airline textbooks, but it explains everything about how US carriers think about their networks. Here's the logic. Can you fill a plane flying direct from Kansas City to Paris? What about Kansas City to Tokyo? Kansas City to Sydney? For most airlines, the answer is no. Kansas City doesn't generate enough demand to fill a wide-body jet to international destinations multiple times per week. But US airlines don't see this as a problem. They see it as their entire business model. American, Delta, and United run hub-and-spoke networks. Passengers from Kansas City fly to Dallas, Chicago, or Denver first. At these massive hubs, they connect to international flights alongside passengers from dozens of other cities. This system turns thin demand from hundreds of smaller markets into thick demand at a handful of mega hubs. The A380 was built for a different world. It was designed for the hub-to-hub model. London to Dubai, Dubai to Sydney, New York to London. The assumption was simple. Connect the world's busiest airports with the biggest planes possible, and you win. But that's not how American Airlines compete. After the Airline Deregulation Act of 1978, US carriers entered a hyper-competitive environment where price became king. Routes opened up, new airlines launched, legacy carriers fought to survive. The survivors built fortress hubs and optimized every single dollar. The hub-and-spoke model won because it solved a critical problem. How do you serve hundreds of city pairs without flying half-empty planes? You consolidate traffic. A passenger from Kansas City and a passenger from St. Louis both fly through Chicago to reach Frankfurt. The Chicago to Frankfurt flight is full. The economics work. Contrast this with Emirates. Dubai sits at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa. Emirates doesn't need to collect passengers from 50 US cities. They're connecting passengers between continents. A traveller flying London to Bangkok stops in Dubai. Someone going Sydney to Paris does the same. The demand is there because Dubai is a global intersection, not just a regional hub. This is where the A380 shines. If you're flying hub to hub with massive consolidated demand, a 500-seat aircraft makes sense. You fill it once and you're done. But if you're American Airlines flying Dallas to London, you need flexibility. Some days you'll fill 300 seats, other days 200. You need to match capacity to demand across dozens of routes, not just bet everything on a handful of massive city pairs. The A380 is the opposite of flexible. It's a one-size-fits-all solution in a market that demands precision. Stick with me here because this next part is technical, but it changes everything. For decades, four-engine jets like the 747 dominated long-haul flying because of a regulation called ETOPS, Extended Range Twin-Engine Operational Performance Standards. The rule was simple. If you're flying a twin-engine plane over water, you must always be within 60 minutes of an emergency landing airport. This made transoceanic routes nearly impossible for two-engine jets, but as engine reliability improved, regulators expanded ETOPS certification. First to 120 minutes, then 180, then 370 minutes. By the 2000s, twin-engine aircraft like the Boeing 777 and 787 could fly anywhere a four-engine jet could, but with 15 to 20% lower fuel and maintenance costs. This destroyed the economic case for four-engine aircraft. The A380 burns more fuel, requires more maintenance, needs longer runways, and demands more gate space. Airlines started asking, why operate a 500-seat plane that costs more per seat than a 300-seat twin-engine jet that flies the same routes? Boeing saw this coming. While Airbus bet on bigger planes, Boeing bet on smaller, more efficient jets with the 787 Dreamliner. The Dreamliner let airlines open new point-to-point routes that were previously uneconomical: Denver to Tokyo, Austin to London, Seattle to Bangalore. These routes don't generate enough traffic for an A380, but they're perfect for a 787. US airlines didn't need the A380 because they had something better: the flexibility to match the right aircraft to the right route at the right time. The numbers tell the story. Airbus invested over $25 billion developing the A380. They needed to sell 420 aircraft to break even. They sold 251. Production ended in 2021. Emirates was the only airline that made the plane work, and even they're starting to retire their oldest A380s in favor of more efficient aircraft. The A380 wasn't a failure because it was a bad plane. It failed because the market it was designed for never materialized. US airlines proved that bigger isn't always better. They built networks around frequency, flexibility, and efficiency. They used smaller wide-body jets to serve more destinations, more often with better economics. The hub-and-spoke model, paired with ETOPS-certified twin-engine jets, created a system where the A380 simply didn't fit. Airbus built the A380 for a world of mega-hubs connecting mega-cities. American Airlines built their businesses around connecting everyone, everywhere, as efficiently as possible. Those are two completely different strategies, and only one of them needed a 500-seat airplane. So why didn't US airlines buy the A380? Because it was built for the wrong market. Airbus assumed the future of aviation was bigger planes flying between bigger hubs. American Airlines bet on frequency, flexibility, and point-to-point efficiency. They were right. The A380 is an engineering marvel. But in the cold, competitive world of airline economics, being impressive isn't enough. You have to fit the strategy. And for US carriers, the A380 never did. Airbus didn't build the wrong plane. They just built the right plane for the wrong market.